When we talk about witchcraft, most people imagine candles, potions, or secret rituals in the dark. But let's be honest, that's the surface level. The deeper truth is that witchcraft, in its most destructive form, is about control. It's about someone trying to bend your will, influence your choices, or weaken your spirit without your consent. And that's not always done with objects or ceremonies. Sometimes it's done through words, manipulation, and energy. Witchcraft at its core is the misuse of influence. Think about it this way: every day, you and I are swimming in a sea of influence. Advertisements, social media, the opinions of friends, even the tone of a loved one's voice. These things shape the way we see ourselves and the world. When that influence is positive, it encourages growth, love, and clarity. But when it is corrupted, when someone intentionally plants fear, doubt, or confusion in your life, it becomes a form of psychological and spiritual warfare. That is what witchcraft really is, not just symbols and spells, but the strategic dismantling of your confidence and peace. You may not always see it at first, because it often creeps in quietly. A sudden heaviness in your thoughts, a constant cycle of bad luck that feels engineered, or even a friend who always seems to drain your energy when you're around them. It's easy to dismiss those moments as coincidence or just a bad season. But here's the uncomfortable truth: not everything is random. Sometimes you're under intentional attack. And the reason it's so effective is because most people don't recognize it until the damage has already been done. That's why awareness is everything. The moment you see your struggles through the lens of spiritual warfare, you begin to reclaim power over them. You stop asking, "Why is this happening to me?" And you start asking, "What force is trying to silence me, and how do I push back?" That shift in perspective alone weakens the hold of any manipulation. Witchcraft thrives in the shadows, in secrecy, in your lack of awareness. But once you name it, once you expose it, the spell is already broken in half. And let's be clear, this isn't about living in paranoia or suspicion. It's about discernment. It's about knowing that while not every setback is witchcraft, every believer needs the wisdom to separate natural struggles from spiritual attacks. When you have that clarity, you stop fighting the wrong battles. You stop blaming yourself for things that were never meant to define you. Instead, you focus your energy where it matters, protecting your mind, guarding your spirit, and standing firm in your authority. So here's the takeaway I want you to carry with you. Witchcraft is not just about candles and chants. It is about influence and control. And the most dangerous chains are the ones you don't realize are binding you. The first step to freedom is awareness, because what you can see, you can fight, and what you can fight, you can defeat. If awareness is the first step, then the second step is learning to recognize the signs. Witchcraft doesn't usually walk into your life waving a banner. It shows up subtly, almost disguised, so that you second-guess yourself. That's what makes it powerful. It thrives in your uncertainty. So let's walk through 7 of the most common signals that someone may be trying to manipulate you spiritually. The first is a sudden wave of misfortune that seems to defy logic. Everyone has ups and downs, but when things start breaking down all at once, your finances collapse, opportunities vanish, relationships crumble. It's often more than just coincidence. It's as if the universe has turned against you. But what's really happening is that someone is projecting resistance into your path. The second is strange health issues that medical explanations can't quite pin down. I'm not saying every illness is spiritual, but when pain or exhaustion lingers without reason, or when you're constantly sick despite healthy habits, it may be an external force trying to weaken your body so your spirit becomes easier to control. The third sign is recurring nightmares or disturbing dreams. Your subconscious is the most vulnerable place you have, because it doesn't filter reality the same way your waking mind does. If you keep waking up shaken, if you feel chased or attacked in dreams, that could be an attempt to invade your peace from the inside out. The fourth is the presence of unexplained fear or anxiety. Fear that rises out of nowhere when everything around you looks fine is rarely just chemical. Fear is the preferred weapon of manipulation. It paralyzes action, it silences courage, and it makes you retreat instead of advance. The fifth is sudden breakdowns in relationships. Witchcraft often targets connection because isolation makes people easier to defeat. If you find loved ones turning cold without cause or arguments erupting without reason, be mindful. Something may be trying to sever the bonds that give you strength. The sixth sign is financial blockages. Money in itself is not the ultimate goal, but it is a tool for freedom and growth. If every time you get close to stability, something unexpected wipes it out, if doors keep slamming shut despite your effort and discipline, that may be a crafted barrier rather than simple bad luck. And the seventh is heavy spiritual oppression. When prayer feels impossible, when you try to focus but your thoughts scatter, when a fog seems to cover your mind every time you reach for truth. That fog is not you being lazy or weak. That fog is designed to keep you powerless, disconnected from the very source that sustains you. Now, do not misunderstand. Any one of these signs on its own might be just life. But when several of them converge, when patterns repeat and explanations fall short, you have to consider the possibility of spiritual manipulation. Recognizing them is not about fear, it is about clarity. And once you see clearly, you are no longer a victim. You are a fighter who knows exactly where to aim. Awareness is the light that darkness cannot stand. Once you name the signs, you strip away their disguise, and the game changes. Because you can't fight what you won't face, but once you face it, you cannot lose. Here's the thing about protection. It doesn't start with shields or walls. It starts with awareness. You cannot guard yourself against something you don't believe exists, and that's exactly why manipulation, spiritual or psychological, is so effective. It hides in plain sight. It convinces you that what you're going through is just coincidence, just bad timing, or worse. It convinces you that you are the problem. Once you accept that narrative, the battle is already half lost. Awareness flips that story. When you recognize that there are forces, seen and unseen, that aim to influence your life without your permission, you stop being a passive recipient and you start becoming an active participant. That shift matters, because what witchcraft and manipulation fear most is someone who refuses to play along unconsciously. Someone who sees the strings and decides not to dance. Think about it in everyday terms. If you know a scam exists, you're far less likely to fall for it. Not because you're stronger or smarter than anyone else, but because awareness makes you cautious. You question things, you double-check motives, and you refuse to hand over control. The same principle applies here. Awareness doesn't magically erase attacks, but it does strip them of their strongest weapon, your ignorance. And here's where the psychological depth comes in. Human beings are wired to seek explanations. When something goes wrong, our instinct is to assign blame on circumstances, on ourselves, on others. But if you don't widen that lens to include the possibility of spiritual interference, you will misdiagnose the problem. And when you misdiagnose, you mistreat. You'll waste energy fixing the wrong thing while the real issue continues unchecked. That's exactly what witchcraft counts on. Your willingness to fight shadows instead of confronting the true source. This is why awareness is not just protection, it's liberation. The moment you say, I see this for what it is, you disrupt the cycle. The grip weakens because secrecy and confusion are no longer in control. Even in psychology, naming a fear is often the first step in overcoming it. Once it has a name, it no longer feels like a nameless monster in the dark. It becomes something you can plan against, something you can fight, something you can win over. And let me be clear, awareness does not mean paranoia. It doesn't mean walking around suspicious of every setback or blaming witchcraft for every bad day. That's not strength. That's fear in disguise. Real awareness is balanced discerning. It allows you to tell the difference between life's natural challenges and targeted spiritual attacks. And when you can tell the difference, you stop wasting strength on the wrong battles. So the call here is simple but demanding. Open your eyes. Refuse to live in denial. Refuse to call chains freedom. Because the moment you see clearly, the manipulation loses its grip. Awareness is not the end of the fight, but it is the beginning of victory. You cannot defend what you cannot define. Once you define it, you are no longer defenseless. Awareness without action is like diagnosing an illness, but refusing the treatment. You can know the signs. You can understand the strategies being used against you, but if you don't move, nothing changes. And this is where breaking free comes in, not as a single dramatic moment, but as a series of intentional steps that reclaim your power. Because the truth is, freedom doesn't fall into your lap. It's something you decide to fight for. One of the first steps is strengthening your inner voice through prayer or meditation. I'm not talking about repeating empty words. I'm talking about grounding yourself in something bigger than the fear that's chasing you. When you speak life out loud, whether through scripture, affirmations, or disciplined silence, you shift your focus from what's attacking you to what sustains you. That shift is critical. Because whatever you focus on grows stronger. If you only stare at the chains will feel unbreakable. But when you focus on the source of your strength, the chains start to look temporary. The second step is fasting, not necessarily just from food, but from anything that feeds the very energy working against you. That could mean cutting off toxic conversations, stepping back from environments that drain you, or refusing to entertain thoughts that spiral into fear. Fasting is about starving the influence that seeks to control you so it loses its grip. Then there's the power of speaking truth out loud. Witchcraft and manipulation thrive in silence and secrecy. When you declare your freedom, when you say with confidence, "I will not be controlled," you are breaking agreement with the very forces that depend on your compliance. Words create atmosphere. They can either trap you or release you. So the discipline of speaking truth, even when you don't feel strong, builds strength over time. Another step is surrounding yourself with people who reinforce your freedom instead of feeding your fear. Isolation makes you vulnerable, but community multiplies resilience. Find people who remind you who you are when you forget. People who lift your perspective higher when all you see is struggle. That's not weakness, that's wisdom. No war is won alone, and spiritual battles are no exception. And finally, you have to renounce fear. That doesn't mean you'll never feel afraid. It means you stop bowing to fear as if it has the final say. Fear is persuasive, but it is not permanent. When you act in spite of it, when you choose courage even while trembling, fear loses its authority over you. Freedom is not about pretending attacks don't exist. It's about refusing to let them define you. Every step you take, through prayer, fasting, truth-speaking, community, and courage, weakens the grip of witchcraft and strengthens the foundation of your life. So here's the bottom line. You don't wait for freedom, you practice it. Chains don't just fall because you wish them away. They fall because you decide every day to break them. The ultimate goal is not just to escape witchcraft or manipulation, it's to live in victory beyond it. Too often, people think of freedom as simply the absence of chains. But true freedom is not just what you're delivered from, it's what you're delivered into. It's living with the confidence that no curse, no scheme, no hidden agenda can hold back the purpose on your life. That's where victory begins, not in fear of what was against you, but in faith for what lies ahead of you. Victory is a mindset before it becomes a reality. If you break free from one attack, but continue living as if you're always under threat, you haven't really been freed. You're still in prison, only now the bars are invisible. The true mark of victory is when you shift from defense to offense. Instead of constantly asking, how do I protect myself? You start asking, how do I expand? How do I grow? How do I lead others out of their chains too? That's when you know you've moved from survival to power. Psychologically, this is critical. When people have been under manipulation for a long time, they often develop what's called learned helplessness, the belief that no matter what they do, the outcome won't change. That belief is one of the deepest scars witchcraft leaves behind. But when you begin to live in victory, you reverse that pattern. You start proving to yourself day by day that your actions do matter, that your choices carry weight, and that your life is not defined by someone else's control. Philosophically, victory is about reclaiming authorship over your own story. Witchcraft tries to edit your narrative, inserting chapters of fear and despair that were never meant to be there. Living in victory is choosing to take the pen back. It's saying, this story is mine to write, and no curse will dictate the ending. That act of reclaiming authorship is powerful, because once you believe you are the writer of your own story, manipulation loses its leverage. And here's the beautiful paradox. Victory isn't about never facing opposition again. You will still encounter setbacks, disappointments, and challenges. The difference is that victory gives you a new lens. You stop interpreting every obstacle as evidence of defeat and start seeing it as an opportunity to grow stronger. Opposition no longer shakes your identity because you know who you are and where your strength comes from. So, what does life in victory look like? It looks like waking up without the constant weight of fear. It looks like walking into opportunities without doubting whether you deserve them. It looks like extending your hand to others still trapped, showing them that freedom is possible because you've tasted it yourself. And most importantly, it looks like living with peace, the kind of peace that doesn't come from circumstances, but from knowing that no matter what comes against you, it cannot prevail. Let me leave you with this: living in victory is not about denying the battle, it's about declaring the outcome. The war has already been decided. You are not destined to remain bound, you are destined to walk free. And once you embrace that truth, you don't just survive witchcraft, you outlive it, outshine it, and outlast it.